Alright, so this video is for the folks that want to shut their trailer off for the winter. Oftentimes the snow will fill up your entire solar panels so that they're not harvesting anything, and then your equipment's still draining the power. So if it gets into that situation for too long, it works really bad. So real quick, I'm going to talk about this is called the photo combiner box, and this is for panel array number 1, which is double pole. This is the panel array number 2, double pole, and then this is the midnight charge controller, and then some trailers will have a 6th breaker here for the lights. So the proper way to shut things down for the winter would be to first turn off panel array number 1, count for a few seconds because you want to allow the midnight charge controller to equalize and get comfortable with the current. Then kill panel array number 2, and then at this point you can then kill the midnight charge controller, and then obviously you can kill the lights, which probably wouldn't matter, but you might as well just have them all down. At that point, then you could come over and you press escape and hold it, and then your master will shut off, and then you can kill it here, and then you can kill the slave there. Now, there's one other thing that you got to be careful of. Normally, that would be enough for you to have 0 drain on your batteries. But there's one other thing I want to point out. For some of you, with a generator, there can be 2 devices inside this back panel, which you have to take off here, okay? Device number 1 is a starter. Some of the older model of generators have the actual starter control in the back. The newer ones have them in the front, which I'll show you what that looks like now. I don't know if you can see down inside there, this is the front panel of the generator here, but down inside there, there's that little round thing right here. That round thing right there, that is, let me see if I can focus, that is the controller. On the newer 11,000s, they actually stuck that on the front of the generator, which I actually do like better, because the power to this can be controlled better, so that when the inverters are off and they're not calling for power, that little device controller will not be pulling power from any battery anywhere. Whereas for other folks who have the older style installation, inside this little grill here, you will see one of 2 devices. Actually, one of 3 devices. One device could be the starter control, and in those circumstances, there's usually another output of wires coming out right from this corner, and it goes up onto the batteries. This installation's really, really bad, because what they did was they took the 12 volts to power this little starter device in here from the main batteries that are over here. And not just equally, they took it from one row of the batteries. So in that case, right here, you'll have like a little wire that will be hooked on here. And then at the end of 6 cells, which will be on the other end over here, there would be another wire, and that basically gives you 12 volts, and that 12 volts would then power this device. The reason it's so bad is because you're pulling 12 volts off of your 48 volt battery, and you're only pulling it from 6 cells, and that can cause an imbalance on your cells. So a lot of the batteries that have any kind of a power going to the generator, and it's a very, very small wire, very, very small, because it only needs to take like less than 1 amp to power this little device in here. I would recommend you seriously look at pulling those 2 wires off of your battery up here. It's usually a red and a black one, and it's ironically, it looks curled, kind of goes curly, and then it goes straight down and hooks into this point here. Another device that you might find inside here would be a GPS tracker, which again, you don't need it. I would probably pull it. They have not been monitoring those forever. Gosh, I think I have one. Let me go see it. I can show you what it might look like. So the gauge wire going to the battery is like this size gauge. Very, very minimal, you can see, compared to my hand. This is one of the devices here. This is a GPS tracker. If you have one of those on your trailer, you probably could just pull it off because it's not really doing anything of value. This is real typical of what you might find inside of the back of your generator. And this style one does usually pull power from either the main batteries unequally off of one row of cells, or I've seen in other cases where this is actually pulling power from the generator battery, which is super bad because what that means is after a period of time, your generator battery, when you need it most, is going to be drained because of this little GPS tracker guy. And the third device, well, I guess you could almost argue is four, is this guy. He's a charge point. If you got a trailer with one of the electric vehicle chargers, this is usually mounted on the back of the generator. This might always be getting powered. Again, if you're not using the generator, or I mean the charger, the electric vehicle charger, you should probably pull this off because it's just draining your batteries. And sometimes it's pulling it from the generator, and sometimes it's pulling it from the main batteries. Now, once you get everything shut off and you think you got it all done, sometimes these little devices that are inside here will have an LED on them. And let it sit for an hour or two, because it might take an hour for the capacitor to finally die if you've properly killed all the power. But you can look inside there, and if you see a lit LED, that's a sign that you are powering something that you may not want to be powering over the winter time. Sometimes you can turn the generator disconnect off. Let me pause the video again. Sometimes, if they're wired properly, this disconnect guy right here, see how he says master disconnect on or off? If you click that to off, that might disconnect the battery in such a way that you don't have to worry about it draining your generator battery over the winter. All right, well, I think that's it. I guess the one other thing that I should show you, in the springtime, when you want to come back out of your winterization mode, there is an important order that you want to turn these breakers on. The first one you want to turn on is breaker number 5, which will power up your midnight charge controller. And now right here it'll go and it'll start booting up. You want to let this boot up all the way, maybe 30 seconds or so, before you click this one on, which would then introduce all the solar power from array number 1, wait 4 or 5, maybe 8 seconds, then flip on the second one, and that will then introduce the power from the second array. The reason you want to do it in this order is because if you turn the solar panels on before the midnight charge controller has powered up, that wall of energy can burn up some transistors in your midnight charge controller to where you'd have to literally unmount it and send it in for repairs. The repairs aren't too bad. They're usually about $100 to $200. It is nice that midnight charge controller or the midnight solar services their devices. I really appreciate that, actually. And then the one last thing that I'll talk to you about is battery voltage levels. All right, so I'm showing you a midnight charge controller that is actively running. I want you to see that the battery voltage right here is saying 53.9 volts, and it's currently taking 4.8 amps from the solar panels. It's really low because I don't have my panels deployed. They're just vertical right now. Anyway, the thing I wanted to point out is that it's important that when you winterize your trailer, you pay attention to what this battery level is at. I believe it can lose 1 volt, maybe 10 to 15% of the battery per month. So over the winter months, you don't want to let it sit, for a whole year, or else your battery will slowly keep dropping. But now, right now, it's artificially high. It's 53.9 volts, and that's because the sun is out and it's shining on these solar panels. But at nighttime, back here, I'll simulate that. At nighttime, if I turn this off, you'll see that that's going to cut the amps way down. And then wait a few seconds, and I'll kill the second one. Okay, now you can see already it dropped to 53.3 volts, and it'll probably drop even further. It might get down into the 52 volt range. The reason I'm showing you this is because at nighttime, when you are not having any solar power coming in, you're not harvesting any sun, that's your true battery voltage, which is going to be lower than what you're going to see during the day. So if I were to turn this battery off right now and winterize it and shut this trailer down, come the spring, I should be in the, 49 volts, maybe 50 volt range, because it will drop from just having it sit there over the winter. All right, well, I think that was it. Oh, one last thing I'll say is that the batteries, as long as they're charged, they can tolerate a lot of temperature. Like they can get well below zero. There's a chart online that you could actually, if you just Google lead acid temperature free state of charge, something like that, it'll pull up and show you the various temperatures that a battery will start to freeze at. Now, if you're at a fully charged battery at 53, 54 volts, it won't freeze until you're like a negative 40 or something crazy like that, below zero. And then if it's discharged, let's say you're at 50%, you're getting closer to like the negative 10 degrees. That battery can start to freeze. So you want to make sure that your batteries stay well charged over the winter, and you don't leave them in a state where they could slowly discharge or get so low that they could freeze. Because if they freeze, boy, that'll ruin your battery really fast. All right, I hope this was helpful for everybody. We'll talk to you later. Remember, subscribe to the channel and share these videos with other people who have bought the trailers.